the hell, right? So when was it? Monday? I don't know. Stuff happens so fast. It's hard to tell what day it is of the week and when it's all happening. It is the craziness. And Netanyahu was visiting the White House and met with Trump. And they had a press conference. And in the press conference, Trump basically floats this idea. And based on Netanyahu's expression when he did this, I really do think this was this Trump just floating an idea, out there in the public. Basically, Trump floats the idea of the United States should take over Gaza, build resorts and everything. Maybe the Sovereign Wealth Fund can invest in the resorts in Gaza. And basically, the population of Gaza, 2 million people who live there, or just under 2 million or whatever the number is, they will be moved to Egypt and Jordan, supposedly. And the United States will secure the area, secure Gaza, and build beautiful resorts along the beaches, and just amazing the kind of stuff you could do there, because the beaches are beautiful, beautiful beaches, and this will all be basically, American property, and the Gazans will be relocated permanently, and this will be like, I don't know, it was not clear, but almost like they were going to plant a U.S. flag in the Middle East, and this is going to be a little U.S. outpost. Maybe it could be the 52nd, 53rd, 54th, 55th. I don't know. I've lost count of the number of new states that are going to be created in the process, but with the process of Greenland and Panama and Canada. Canada's what, 6 states? 6 states or 8 states? How many states do you have in Canada? Anyway, people forget Canada's not going to be just one state. It's going to be multiple states with lots of senators, and quite a few congressmen, and it wasn't clear. And you could tell Netanyahu was like amusingly looking at Trump and contemplating all this and thinking, what is he talking about? There's actually a video going around just with a close-up of Netanyahu just as Trump is saying this. God, I wish I knew exactly what was going on inside his head. Anyway, so he did that. Then the next day, yesterday, February 5th, so the next day, White House press secretary basically backpedals. She basically says, this is Caroline Levitt, she says, the relocation of the Gazans will be temporary, not permanent. They can all, once the United States builds them, all the buildings and all this stuff, they can all come back. Maybe the United States can build some tunnels while they're there and leave some, weapon systems while they're at it. Why not? I mean, that's what the Gazans are going to do when they get back. So it's temporary, it's not permanent, and they will come back, supposedly, again. And then she also said and made a point that President Trump is not committing to sending U.S. troops to Gaza, because what happened after the press conference with Netanyahu was MAGA flipped out. I mean, there was Candace Owen and a bunch of other, but more mainstream, I think, MAGA just flipped out. I mean, you saw a lot of people saying, "Wait a minute, didn't Trump run for office on the promise of we're getting out of the Middle East. We don't want to go into more wars in the Middle East, and we don't want the U.S. involved, and we don't want to start new wars, and we're not going to occupy new lands, and basically America first. We're going to bring everybody home." And now we're going to war with Panama. We're going to maybe war with the European Union over Greenland, and maybe with Canada to make it a state. Who knows? And now we're going to Gaza? To Gaza? Do you know what that means? She's like, oh, no. Don't worry, MAGA. We're going to invest in Gaza, but we're not going to actually send troops to Gaza. No troops to Gaza. So everybody's going, how's this going to work? And she says, and then she said, which again contradicts the implication, at least, of what Trump said, we're not going to pay for rebuilding of Gaza. It's not going to be us. She didn't say who would. Probably the Saudis, the Qataris, the UAW, maybe Iran. Iran paid for it last time. Iran can build the tunnels, and the rest of the Arabs can build the buildings on top. Anyways, America is not going to rebuild, not going to send troops, and moving the Palestinians in temporary, not permanent. All right. So that was kind of a reset. But then Trump comes on today, and he says, this is the way it's going to happen, right? This is the way he sees it. First, Israel beats Hamas, so it wins the war. No specificity in how this is done, when this is done. But first, Israel wins the war. Then, the Gazans are relocated. Then, America rebuilds Gaza. Not clear if American money, American supervision, American architects, American, maybe it's Saudi money with Trump development, and maybe what's his name, his son-in-law can get in on the deal as well. There are many billions of dollars to be made in developing Gaza, supposedly, particularly if the money's coming from Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and no mention by Trump in his latest tweet of the Palestinians coming back, and but he does say no American troops are needed, because why would they need to be there? Because Israel's already defeated Hamas, and the Palestinians are left, so the place is empty. What do we need? What do we need troops for? There's nobody to defend against. True enough. So I mean, this is funny. It's funny because it's ludicrous and insane. It's crazy. It's funny because, well, it's not so ludicrous and insane, actually. It's mainly funny because it's just completely unrealistic, completely detached from reality. I mean, the Israelis are loving it. So the defense secretary announced today, Israel's defense secretary announced today that the Israeli IDF is going to prepare basically a whole mechanism by which Palestinians who voluntarily want to leave the Gaza Strip will be able to go anywhere they want, and Israel will facilitate it, as if they wouldn't have facilitated in the past. Okay, so first, I mean, the Overton window. The Overton window is those ideas that are acceptable, that you can talk about, that are not going to get you called a fascist. You're not going to get you canceled. The public reasonably accepts, right? And there's a certain Overton window about Israel and the Palestinians, and deporting, right, kicking out the Palestinians out of Israel has always been outside of the Overton window. It was something that, crazy right-wing religious nuts in Israel would advocate for. Well, Trump has basically now put it inside the Overton window. And that's good. Because certainly, particularly if you make their leaving Gaza and the West Bank, why not, voluntarily, then this is a great idea. I would actually say, let's incentivize them. Let's put some money at play. Certainly, Israel would benefit if Gaza and the West Bank had fewer Palestinians. Israel could put some money into it and say, okay, so many $1,000s for every Palestinian who agrees to leave. So that's all good. That's good. But who's going to take 2 million Palestinians? 3 million if you include the West Bank. Where are they going to go? Now, it's true that, Canada and Norway and Spain and maybe some other countries around the world, Australia, have volunteered in the past to take Palestinians. But we're talking about thousands, not 2 million. Jordan indeed embraced and took in a significant number of Palestinians in 1967 after the Six-Day War. And those Palestinians fomented what looked like a civil war inside Jordan, and Jordan had to militarily in September 1970, kicked the Palestinians out and basically kicked out the Palestinians, who then went to Lebanon and were put in refugee camps in Lebanon and started a civil war in Lebanon. Nobody's kicked them out of Lebanon, not because Lebanon wouldn't like to kick them out, but because nobody will accept them. Nobody will take them in. And Arabs love the Palestinians so much that everywhere the Palestinians actually do go, they're kept in, I was going to say concentration camps, but not really, refugee camps. They're not allowed citizenship, not allowed driver's license, not allowed employment, they're not allowed to participate in the local life. So they are forever eternal refugees. And that's how the Arab world likes it. They want to be able to dangle the Palestinian issue in front of Israel, in front of the West, to guilt them into compromises and to guilt them into selling out. I mean, the Palestinian refugees are refugees, you know, what is it, 80 years after they left their homes. Usually refugees are resettled. Usually refugee problems are not solved by returning the refugees to where they came from, but are solved by resettling them into new countries. They can't even resettle the refugees in their, the ones who live in their countries, in places like Jordan, and particularly in Lebanon. They won't even settle them there. Now you expect them to absorb another 2 million? It's just... And then Egypt doesn't want them. Egypt's had lots of opportunities to take Gaza. In the 1979 peace deal with Sadat, Israel offered Egypt, please take Gaza. We don't want Gaza. And Egypt was like, nah, we don't want Gaza. You deal with the Gaza. We have no appetite for Gaza. Do they want the people of Gaza without the property of Gaza? Well, of course not. Why would they want that? It's only trouble for them. They have enough problems with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, who came to power last time there were open elections in Egypt. They have enough trouble with them. They don't need the 2 million Palestinians, Hamas, who are much more sympathetic to the Muslim Brotherhood than other Arabs in the region. They don't need that headache. I don't know what other Arab country would take them. Tunisia, Algeria, Libya. Libya is an anarchy, so maybe you could get them into Libya. I think that would create quite a few problems for Europe and for the U.S. in terms of a hotbed for terrorism. It would turn Libya into a hotbed for terrorism. But it's just not happening. I mean, not only is it not happening, but what it's actually done is it's kind of unified the Arab world. If there's one thing the Arab world now has come together around is, oh, no, you're not evacuating Palestinians from Gaza. That is not happening. It would have been much better if you'd done this kind of stealthily, offered Palestinians money to leave, the U.S. cut quiet deals with different places around the world, shipped them out by the thousands slowly over time, and maybe made, you know, some dent in the population. But 2 million? I mean, the Saudis have come out and said, this is ridiculous, this is not happening. Forget about normalization with Israel as long as that is on the plate. And indeed, now the Saudis are saying, we will not normalize with Israel. We will not have a peace deal with Israel unless the Palestinians have their own state with East Jerusalem as their capital. Which, by the way, they were offered in 1999, and Yasser Arafat declined. It's one of these where Trump can say outrageous stuff, can, you know, everybody's going to, you know, assume he's a big friend of Israel, I guess. People are getting excited. Everybody's going to get, you know, start planning. You know, there's probably people planning to build, I don't know, buy real estate in Gaza and build. But the probability of it happening is very close to zero. And yet it'll get a lot of press. It'll get a lot of attention. Trump, for his MAGA crowd, I mean, some of them and the pro-Israel crowd is going to look like a hero, and actually nothing's happened. I mean, it's in terms of actual impact on the world, is zero. The one thing it's done is it's significantly strengthened the hand of the far right in Israel, which is not healthy for Israel. But it's strengthened the hand of the far right in Israel. And even if you believe in that this is the ultimate solution, get the Palestinians out of Gaza, this is probably not the way to go around about it. I'm curious to see how this develops because, I don't know if it can go anywhere, literally anywhere. So we'll see. And again, the Israeli far right will pick this up and use this to justify their own position. I'm not sure what Netanyahu does with this. And I'm not sure what the Palestinians do with this. And I'm not sure how this affects the actual question of what is going on, what is going to happen now in Gaza once the hostages, this round of hostage release is over. What is phase 2? What is phase 3? Is Israel going to be given the green light to go in and engage in war again? What exactly is the solution? Because this is not a solution, at least not unless somebody forces Egypt to do it. Now, the United States could force Egypt. That is true. The United States provides Egypt with $3 billion of foreign aid. We'll talk about foreign aid later, but with foreign aid every single year. $3 billion of foreign aid every year. The United States sells massive quantities of weapons to Egypt. Egypt's a poor country. It would really struggle without the $3 billion in foreign aid. By the way, the reason Egypt gets the $3 billion of foreign aid is it was part of the peace deal signed in Camp David when Jimmy Carter was president, that Egypt continues to get this $3 billion basically forever in exchange for not going to war with Israel. And when Trump suspended all foreign aid, I can't even remember when that was, a week ago? A week and a half ago? He made, the exception was Egypt, this $3 billion, and the United States, and Israel, and Israel. Israel doesn't get $3 billion, it gets all kinds of military aid and stuff. It doesn't get a straight kind of funding. And so, the United States could say, Egypt, you want your $3 billion, you want your weapon systems, you want us to keep maintaining the weapon systems, you want us to keep all of that, take in the 2 million Gazans, and put them somewhere where they're not on the border with Israel, because you don't want to create another Gaza just somewhere else on the border with Israel. Put them, I don't know, in the Sahara Desert somewhere. That would be good. I find it hard to believe Egypt would ever do that, but U.S. does have leverage over Egypt. It has leverage over Jordan. Jordan is another recipient of U.S. foreign aid. It also, its entire military is basically U.S. weapon systems. So they are dependent on the United States. The United States could force Jordan and Egypt to do this. Now, the counterbalance that is Saudi Arabia. If Saudi Arabia says, no, this is unacceptable, and basically tells the United States, Saudi Arabia can threaten the United States in a variety of different ways. One of Trump's big priorities, we'll get to this a little later, is lowering the price of oil. Well, the Saudis can really hamper that if they want to. They can side with China. They can side with Russia. They can be more friendly to Iranians. They can replace the United States with $3 billion to Egypt. Maybe even China would be willing to replace the $3 billion of aid to Egypt instead of the United States. You never know. And suddenly that completely changes the geopolitics of the entire Middle East if China or the Saudis are playing such a big role. So, anyway, that is the status of Trump's proposal, I think the status of it is it can't go anywhere, and it won't go anywhere. It's just one of these crazy things Trump says, Trump does. Everybody freaks out, and I don't know. In a month we'll forget, maybe not, because Gaza will still be a problem, a thorn in the side of Israel. So in 4 years we'll just have to see where we are, and maybe the J.D. Vance administration will find a solution for Gaza once Trump is out. Although, arguably, in terms of what actually is happening on the ground, maybe this is a J.D. Vance administration. If J.D. Vance is closer to Musk than Trump is, maybe it's already a J.D. Vance administration. Anyway, let's not engage in conspiracy theories. I don't want to start conspiracy theories. That's not good. Let me just see quickly. Not that. All right. I'm going to take Colleen's question because it relates directly to Gaza quickly, and it's $50. Thank you, Colleen. Really, really appreciate it. Colleen says, could Israel just let the Gaza Strip be its own country? Stop supporting it, treat it like a real independent country. Would the world then be okay with retaliation for acts of war? No, the world would not be okay. The reality is that Gaza was its own country until October 7th. It basically had borders. It controlled its borders. It had, Israel just, for certain goods and certain products, embargoed this independent country. But Israel did supply this country with electricity because Gaza couldn't supply it themselves. It supplied them with water because Gaza couldn't supply it themselves. And it supplied them with things like internet service and phone service, which it still does to this day, all of those things. But it was its own country. It had its own police force, its own government, its own health ministry. Of course, if a Gazan got cancer and it couldn't be treated locally, they would come into Israel and get treatment in Israel, and the Israeli state would pay for that, and they would get cancer treatment. But for all intents and purposes, Gaza was its own country. And one of the reasons Israel left Gaza in 2005 was the idea, as long as we rule it, we're responsible for policing it, and that's a messy business, and we can't really crush them. We can't go in there and really destroy them, because it's part of Israel. We can't use rule engagement of war because they're not a separate political entity. So they said, if we leave and then they attack us, then we can just go in and annihilate them. Well, they did that. They left. Hamas, Gaza, really, attacked Israel. And Israel has never annihilated them. I mean, it came the closest this time, but it's still completely restrained, didn't do what's necessary, left them alone. So no, that's already been tried. And it was really the rationale behind leaving Gaza in the first place. Create this political entity that is Gaza, ruled by Hamas, or whoever rules it. And if they attack us, we'll crush them, like we would crush an enemy country. But they attack, and they attack, and they attack, and they attack, and Israel did nothing. And then they attacked in a major way October 7th, and Israel did something, but not enough to win, not enough to crush them, not enough to change the dynamic. All right. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out with Trump. I mean, I don't know. I think ultimately, my view is, and you guys will see how it plays out. My view is Trump cares more about Saudi Arabia than he does about Israel at the end of the day. And I think Saudis ultimately will dictate U.S. foreign policy vis-a-vis Israel and Gaza and the Palestinians. The Saudis wanted some kind of two-state solution. I think in the end of the day, Trump is going to really squeeze Netanyahu around a two-state solution. This is what he did his first term. There was a peace plan. It was only introduced, I think, the year of the election, and there was COVID, and there were a lot of distractions. But I think this time it could be introduced a lot earlier. It could be roped in with a Saudi deal, joining the Abraham Accords, and a demand that Israel compromise. Because I think at the end of the day, it's in many respects easier to force Israel to compromise than it is to force the Arabs to compromise. And, I think Trump doesn't care about the outcome. He cares about a deal. And if the deal means squeezing Israel, then he'll squeeze Israel. He has no qualms, none whatsoever, I think, about squeezing Israel at all. So that's where I expect things to go. But this is going to play out over months. It's going to play over a long time. In the meantime, a lot of people are playing with this idea, let's resettle Gaza and let's get rid of the Gazans, put them somewhere else, and and there are a lot of people with all kinds of dreams for what the beachfront of Gaza looks like. But the reality is, I just want to put a little bit of reality into this idea of there's a beautiful beachfront, we can build resorts there. Sure, but that beachfront also exists in Egypt and the northern Sinai. It's the same beach. That beachfront also exists just north of Gaza in Israel, all the way up to Haifa, right? That's all beach, basically, and those resorts exist in Tel Aviv and other places around the coast. It's not clear that Quad Gaza, is uniquely situated, better situated than Egypt or Israel to take advantage of the beautiful Mediterranean beaches. There's nothing that special about Gaza. It's got some nice beaches, nice beachfront, but so does the rest of the Mediterranean. So it seems to me like all of this is really just pie in the sky fantasy. I think if developers actually looked at building resorts and so on in Gaza, what are the economics of it? It's just not clear to me that the economics are positive. Maybe they are. Maybe Tel Aviv's already overwhelmed, and we need that area of the Middle East needs more resorts. But again, it's part of this detached from reality, detached from facts, detached from actually being on the ground and knowing what's there. Complete detached, throw ideas out there into the world, see what sticks or not, and go to the next crisis. No, it's not like the French Riviera, but again, there are beautiful beaches from Turkey down to Egypt. There's no lack of beautiful beaches. So it's not like there's a scarcity of beautiful beach stretches on which to build resorts. We need Gaza. We need resorts in Gaza because that they have the solution. He doesn't want to build housing for the Palestinians. He wants to build resorts, beautiful resorts on the beaches there. That's what he wants to build. And the Palestinians are out. The Palestinians, he wants to build housing for the Palestinians, but in Egypt and in Jordan. At least that was the initial proposal. I'm not sure now if they're going to come back, if he's going to build them housing in Gaza when they come back. But if they come back, then what stops them from building the tunnels and getting the weapons and starting all over again, and it all starts over? What's the point? Building them condos, and they won't build tunnels under the condos, so they have nice condos versus horrible condos? Again, they've had the billions and billions of dollars. This is like economic determinism. If you just give a Palestinian a nice home, they'll stop being a terrorist. If you give a Hamas fighter a nice home, he'll renounce his Islamist ideology. If you just built a few nice theaters and cinemas and malls, they'll all become 100% civilized, and they'll chuck their barbarism, and they'll never do another October 7th. Again, delusions.